Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Press Play Action. Mitchell Lee, Tommy Grant, Brandon too, and guys, we're not done with the Middle Earth saga, but we are done with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. As tonight we will do the big one, the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King. Before we get started, guys, how the hell are we doing? We doing all right? Brandon's getting drunk on the podcast already.
Hey, it's never a good episode unless one of us is drunk on it. It's
That
usually
was,
me. It's usually me, so I'm glad Brandon is taking the helm on
It
this.
looks like a beer, but it's Canada Dry ginger ale. So
You
we're good.
disappoint me.
He
Yeah,
poured
we're
his
good.
beer into the ginger ale can.
Yeah,
and
that's it. Yeah. Even though you saw me crack it on screen.
Yeah, no, I heard the sound. All right, so that sets the table perfectly to talk about.
Well, yeah, I mean, if we're gonna talk
one of
about
the
one of
most-
the best movies ever,
one of the most
get loose with
awarded
it.
movies in the history of film. Let's just go ahead and dive right into the backstory.
Well, you say
Or
one,
at least-
is it not the most awarded film?
I think it's like second, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was number one. I mean, it's got a lot of awards.
It is tied with what two movies for having the most Academy Award wins of all time?
If I remember correctly, it's Titanic and Ben-Hur.
There you go.
Yeah.
There's both of them.
Surprisingly,
Brandon, you snooze, you take the L.
I snooze, I lose. I will say Titanic is one of my favorite movies, but also it's very funny that Leo did not win for Titanic.
Here's a spoiler alert for people. We are going to try to review Titanic at the end of this year.
Well,
So
we
if
love
you
that.
know, if you look at the 2025 release schedule and what things are coming out later, you might go, oh, there's a certain director we might be getting to before a movie,
4.5-year-old,
a big sequel comes out. So
4.5-year-old Brandon would love that because my babysitter would just put on Titanic like every day.
wow, your babysitter was awful, putting on a
I know.
4.5,
The problem,
3.5 hour movie for a 4.5-year-old.
The thing is, we liked it. We didn't understand like all the adult.
There's nothing that puts
Of
a
course you
kid
didn't.
at ease
Right.
than just human suffering.
But we did like the movie a lot as like 4-year-olds, and it was just funny to like.
You just like that things were moving on the screen.
Right, exactly, and it's a very beautiful movie. James Cameron, But we're here to talk about.
We're here to talk about Peter Jackson and Lord of the Rings: Return of the King.
Is a god.
Peter Jackson directed this. Everyone returning. This came out December 17th, 2003. $94 million budget. $1.15 billion. This whole trilogy was a gigantic success.
Wait, can you say that number again?
$1.15 billion.
That revenue is unbelievable. That is
fantastic.
Remarkable.
And especially in 2003 when only like 3 or 4 movies were in the $1 billion club at that point. It was a lot less common.
At that point, Return of the King was the second movie to pass the $1 billion mark, and the first one was Titanic.
Titanic, yeah. So, yeah, definitely uncommon for a movie to do that back in the day. Lord of the Rings definitely had a death grip on the zeitgeist in the early 2000s. Like we mentioned, one of the most awarded movies of all time. 11 wins for Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, including Best Picture. It beat out Lost in Translation, Master and Commander, Mystic River, and Seabiscuit. I've only seen Lost in Translation out of those, and it's a fantastic movie, but I do like this better. Best Director, it won. Best Adapted Screenplay, it won for Best Original Score, Best Original Song, Best Sound Mixing, Best Art Direction. I don't know how it wasn't nominated for Best Cinematography. Didn't win, wasn't nominated.
That might be the biggest like snub nomination in like the history of.
It's very strange.
You have it available, but do you know who was in the running
Master
for
and
that one?
Commander. I've never seen Master and Commander.
I have seen it. It is very well shot, but
over Return of the King?
I can't say it would be over Return of the King, but that's because I'm also very biased. Master
Best
and Commander
makeup, which probably had some strong competition from Pirates of the Caribbean: Curse of the Black Pearl, but Fellowship of the Ring, Return of the King won Best Costume Design, Best Visual Effects, and Best Film Editing. It was nominated for 11 awards, and it took home 11 awards. If you were nominated in the same category as Return of the King, you went home empty-handed in that category. One of the all-time fantastic nights in the history of
The
the
Michael
Academy
Jordan of
Awards.
movies. Yeah, the
And
Michael
honestly,
Jordan.
I feel
Basically,
like this is the movie that like sparked the revolution for like fantasy films to be like, hey, we can actually make good movies that
Like
are like Oscar
blockbusters.
worthy out of fantasy films.
Yeah, we can make
Because after that,
blockbuster, but also Oscar worthy.
you saw so many adaptations of fantasy books coming out after that.
but none of them were able to reach those same
No,
heights. Like I remember Aragon came out and was just awful.
it was that was
Uh,
a terrible one.
the Golden Compass. I remember the Narnia movies came out, and I
Yep.
actually just watched the Narnia trilogy for the first time a few months ago. I didn't really care for those movies, if we're being 100% honest. Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings really did a lot at the beginning of. I mean, Harry Potter was obviously a much longer series and extended throughout the 2000s, even into the 2010s, whereas Lord of the Rings was right at the very beginning. And this movie was just an absolute beast. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see. Obviously, we have a review to do before we get to the grades.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you guys have been higher on these two movies than I have been.
Mhm.
So I'm curious to see. And Brandon gives out A plus like 60, 70, 80, 90, like it's
That's
nothing.
just a
So
lot.
I'm
I mean,
very
that's literally
curious
a lie, but
to
okay.
You
see
should already guess what
where
mine is, but yeah.
where you guys end up with this movie, because I barely got to an A plus with the Two Towers. I didn't get to an A plus with Fellowship of the Ring, and this is the latest entry in the Mitchell Lee Movie Appreciation Hall of Fame,
Of course it.
as I
Damn right.
projected that
Of
it would
course it
be.
is.
This movie is, and I know that you guys watched the 8.5 day long extended version, whereas I
And you
watched
watched the
the
theatrical, you
I
Well,
petty.
watched the
Mitchell,
three and a
Mitchell,
half
the
hour
audience needs to know
theatrical.
what the audience needs to know what I did.
Yes, because you invited me to do this, and it was just a little
And
too like,
this man said, "LOL, no thanks."
well, not because I didn't want
No,
to, but
yeah,
because you asked me like 2 hours before it started,
yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah.
I can't get over there
You
quick.
gotta give
No,
advance
It was
notice,
because
bro.
yeah, it was because Lindsay was sick. I should have asked him the day before because I saw that Alamo Drafthouse was playing Return of the King extended edition in theaters, and they had apparently been doing the trilogy like the last 3 weekends or whatever. So I should have done that. But I was like, it's Return of the King. It's 4 hours. Like, if I'm gonna go to like a place where you can like get nice food, eat a little bit, and watch this
you know
amazing
people
movie,
aren't going to be on their phones.
right? Yeah, because Alamo Draft House, I do like that they have like that rule where you can't be on your phone and stuff like that. So I knew that the people that were going to go see this movie were people like me, and it might have been the greatest experience in a movie theater. Like that movie was sick, yeah, in a movie theater. I never seen it in theaters,
I
so
would
I
say
was
there's
I was
probably a
excited.
handful of movies that like if I could pay to go back in time to rewatch it again, like for the first time in theaters, this would be one of them at the
Yeah,
top of my list.
yeah, exactly. Like the extended edition and IMAX or like Dolby would be like the
Like
greatest
just the
experience.
over. I mean, this especially where cinematography, where I don't know how they didn't get this for the Oscar for this movie because just the overhead shots of like all the scenic landscape, the battle
Mm.
scenes. I mean, just the end battle alone, like the charge that we're here. I'm like, that's an insane, intense scene that just it blows me away every time. And seeing that like in the theaters was just insane.
I mean, we complain about CGI now, but like, see, like their elephants looked awesome. Like, I mean, this CGI, everything looked
Yeah,
awesome. Like, I don't know
There's a
what we were
lot.
doing.
There's a lot of movies where Brandon and I have this thing where when we go to the movies, we don't like to, because I don't get to see Brandon as much as I'd like to. So when we go to the movies, we go 2, 3, sometimes 4. We've done 5
We
movies
have
a
them
many
five.
as you can fit in a day.
Yeah, we have them
and
five.
and like for example, in September, we were seeing 2 movies, and we saw that they were playing Shaun of the Dead, and neither of us had seen Shaun of the Dead, and they were showing that in Dolby, And whenever there's like a classic movie like Shaun of the Dead or Interstellar or something like that, Brandon and I will always try to go and check that out. So I'm really hoping that they do another, and I'm sure they will at some point, because this is commonly referred to as the best trilogy of all time. And I don't agree with that statement. I think that it is the best live action trilogy of all time.
Oh, okay.
I think the
Okay.
best trilogy is Toy Story, but
Well,
uh,
you count the fourth in the trilogy. Like, that's what.
count the fourth in the trilogy, and I still think it's the best
It's
because
still the best.
I'm not one of
No,
those
no,
people that
I'm with
hates
you.
Toy Story 4. I love it.
I think Toy Story's sick. Like, it's up there in like the top 5 for me in terms of trilogy. So I won't argue with you for that. But yeah,
But man, this thing just, and I cannot imagine. I kept comparing this movie to Endgame in my head because it's very
that's a
similar
good.
in that
Yeah,
it's a conclusion. Maybe they should have ended the MCU with Endgame. Just saw the new Captain America movie and another stinker. But
that's come
it's
on
it's
now.
it's
That's
it's it's a
that's rude.
Stay on
it's a
You
track. Stay on track.
it's a conclusion to this beloved series of movies, and it feels so earned. There's so many moments where you just kind of wanted that cliche of like, you'll stand up and cheer, like on the DVD box, and it's like, no, I'm not going to stand up and cheer for, you know, Black Swan. That's not a stand up and cheer movie, but for this is absolutely one of those. I can't imagine how fun it must have been seeing this on opening night with a theater full of people pumped to
that
see it.
it's
Direct
got to
I
be.
missed out. I missed
It's
out,
got to
and
be peak
I'm jealous
lifetime.
of people. I'm jealous of people that were in their
Right.
20s, teens, whatever for
Right.
this
Like they
series.
understood the impact of like what they
Yes,
were doing. Yeah, yeah. Because like
yeah,
I
because even
imagine
Tommy, I mean, you were 9 when this movie came out,
That was
Mitchell.
so
my
Have
you
you
were
first my
still a
first
little
PG
young.
13 movie that my parents took me to, and it was worth it.
have you guys seen the video that like circulates around social media where it's like people going to see episode 1 like opening night and like
Yeah,
bringing lightsabers and stuff like that and like freaking out? I imagine watching Return of the King was like that. People
without the
dressing up as
colossal
hobbits.
disappointment.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. People dressing up as hobbits, dressing up as orcs, doing their thing. Like I imagine there's like was some chaos behind going to see it opening night and just like knowing the amount of fans there are for Lord of the Rings. Like,
Well,
yeah,
it's
that's got
funny
to be
because
peak.
like
That's got to be peak.
as amazing as these movies are, the like true like the Tolkien fans are still like lividly pissed at Jackson with what he did with this
Yeah,
trilogy because they
they are.
he made a
Shut
lot of
up
changes.
if you're
I'm telling
pissed
you,
about this.
but that's the thing. A lot of people were mad when this trilogy came out because like it went completely off of what the books were doing, and they made just started making stuff up throughout the trilogy that people just
I
were
mean,
so
sure,
pissed
but
off
they're
about.
still faithfully like. I still think they do a pretty good job with it. I mean, I completely understand where people are coming from,
Yeah,
but it also lends to the point, and I know that we're movie people, but I think a lot of these like fantasy stuff, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Aragon, like a lot of them could be like shows, and they
yeah,
would probably be better as shows than like movies.
yeah.
But if we're trying to make like a
Because
cultural
there's so much
impact,
detail.
movies are like the way to go. I think that's why Game of Thrones is so successful because
Yeah,
they're like instead of making this 4 movies, let's make this 5 seasons.
yeah.
And yeah, some of them fell off, but it's like yeah, at the end of the
I
day, I
was
think it
gonna
worked.
say, even with something like Game of Thrones, that people are happy that they went the TV route. How'd that end?
No,
Was
I don't
anyone
think that
happy
was
with
the
the way
source
that
Well,
material.
concluded?
that was a whole
When
different
you get
scenario
something
because
that
the source material wasn't
concludes,
there to go off of, so they had to make
that's
shit up.
also true. That's also
Yeah,
true.
that's a George R. R. Martin problem,
Yeah.
not a people problem.
But it's
But
rare that you get something that can conclude this way, that ends on
Right,
such a
which is
high
the
note. I mean,
ultimate point. Yeah,
even as Star Wars, people love the Star Wars trilogy. The best movie was not Return of the Jedi. It's not. It's not.
the best
That's not the
movie.
best movie of that trilogy. The best movie of that trilogy is Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
It just is.
I think the main issue is because Lord of the Rings obviously was a well known book trilogy before it became even a thought of becoming movies. And so by the
Whereas
time
Star
the
Wars
movies
is just
by
like
the time the
random.
movies even came out, it was like this was like religious text to fans. Like any
Hmm.
change to it would be sacrilege. So it's like you're bound to get people pissed off. But I remember when I saw it in the theaters, like I had already read the books by that point, and they made a huge change to the whole story from the start of the movie to the end of it,
Yeah,
and
What was it?
you
that
touched
was
on
with
this last
Saruman.
time, right? They basically like changed the timeline
So
to
this
like,
movie, as we all know, is kind of the movie like infamously known for having like 1,000 endings. There would have
Yeah,
been a whole nother
it's my
ending to
one
this
critique
movie,
of this movie
which
is
is
that
why
there's 18
I think
endings.
that's
Yeah.
probably why he cut it out and didn't go with that route. But Mitchell, to your confusion, you never watched the extended edition where the
but
whole
I know about some things. Like for example, I think it's either in Two Towers or Return of the King where you learn a little bit more about the Steward of Gondor and why he's such a dick.
yes,
Because if
that
you
was in
watch,
2 hours.
okay, because I heard somewhere that there's definitely more context given to why he acts the way that he does, and
Yeah.
that's definitely something that I would have been curious to see. And also, there's no Saruman in the theatrical version of this.
Hmm.
That he's killed in
So
the extended edition, but you just
that
don't
was one of
see
the
him
big
at all in the theatrical.
The
well,
extended edition, the scene with Saruman is sick. It
yes,
is awesome.
and that's why I told you this was the movie if you were going to see an extended one to watch it. But in the books, Saruman never dies. He
Hmm.
is let go by Treebeard and he escapes and ends up taking over the Shire. So when Frodo and all them finally return home, it's completely taken over by orcs and goblins and Saruman, and it's a whole. They're all enslaved. So that scene
It's like another
in
ending.
Fellowship of the Ring where Frodo looks into the mirror and sees like the Shire kind of like in flames. That is what happens when they get home from this whole journey, and Saruman's there, and they basically fight him off, and with a little Hobbit army. That never happens, obviously, in the movies. So, like when I saw it for the first time, I was like waiting and waiting and waiting. I was like, "Wait, are they not doing this?" I was like, "What is going on?" Because in the theatrical version, Saruman like is just gone in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah,
So,
they
like,
don't
all right.
show him at all.
So I was like, "All right,
Yeah.
so they're just gonna save it for the end and have him just magically reappear," and then he just never appears. I'm like, "Oh, they just cut this whole storyline out of the movie."
So
Okay,
I don't want fans to get like mad. I don't want Tolkien heads to get mad. I think Peter Jackson made the right decision.
I
I
agree.
think if you end this trilogy with that whole like battle in the Shire and fighting off Saruman, I just think it leaves a different taste in your mouth.
Too much.
It's
Yeah.
almost too much. It's like they did everything they possibly could. Sam carried the team on his back, and then he gets back to the Shire and it's
Well, it
burning.
was also just
That's a little crazy.
the essence of like the whole beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring is like that peaceful opening. You're in the Shire, everything's happy. So
Right.
having ending the movie with all of a sudden like, oh, we're back to this happy place, but it's burning after we just defeated the enemy, kind of would be like kind of a sour
Which
taste in everybody's mouth. So like, I'm
which I
glad they
think
kept it the
Tolkien
way
was
they did.
going right. I think Tolkien was going for like shock value, like, oh, like we didn't realize Saruman was going to do this, and like he did this, and then whatever. But not saying that Tolkien like wrote a bad ending or wrote like the wrong ending, but I just think it's just another layer. Mitchell, you said it's almost too much. It's like the Iron Claw when they cut out like the one brother because it's like it's almost too
Yeah,
much
yeah,
going on. Like it's
yeah.
just too much.
That's a really good comparison.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that I think this whole trilogy does so exceptionally well, and I'm really glad that we got to watch these in such a, week by week. And there are people that I'm sure you guys have probably done this, especially you, Tommy,
Just a
where
week.
you take a day, you take a weekend, and you just watch boom, 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 extended edition, not extended edition, whatever the case may be. But given the fact that I watched Fellowship of the Ring for the first time in 2014, Two Towers in 2015, and Return of the King in 2020, I didn't have that experience. So this was nice to be able to watch them in such close proximity to each other and see the growth of so many of these characters, especially Merry and Pippin,
Mm-hmm.
Where in the first movie, I'm just like, all right, can someone just like stab these two, please? Like,
I
just get
told
them
you
off
they're
the
the most
screen.
important, one of the
And
most
then
important characters of the books and the movies.
Mary at the end of the second movie, you really start to see his growth. And then in this movie, they don't just revert him back to where he was. That growth continues,
Yeah.
which is nice. A lot of sequels don't do a very good job of continuing the momentum. It's almost like they revert back to where they were. And then Pippin has to go through a similar but very different arc in the third movie where he kind of has to see things and go, oh shit, okay,
I'm a hobbit. Like,
I
yeah.
need I need to be something different. But Samwise Gamgee in this movie, holy shit, this dude just goes straight up beast mode and puts the entire world on his back
Yeah, that was
in
unfair
this
to him to
thing.
say the team because the world is what he put on his
Yeah,
back. He's
this
Frodo.
man saves Frodo, helps Frodo out with everything because Frodo, and they do again, you're going to hear fantastic job, great job, extraordinary job, amazing, because that's just what this movie is, of making Frodo look like the most like sick, like you can see, at the beginning of the movie, they show Smeagol and how he kind of became Gollum,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see like Frodo's only had this ring for so long, and plus they're on this really long journey. They're running out of food. They don't have any water, and he just looks awful. He looks like he is falling apart, and you can see like, hey, if this guy was to hold on to this ring for as long as Smeagol had it, you could see a very similar fate for
Mm-hmm.
Frodo. And I really liked that they didn't just make Frodo like regular tired.
Yeah.
They beat his ass down.
I
Yeah,
know
they
there
did.
was
I
some.
mean, yeah,
I know there was some uncut footage that they never released, but they actually filmed a sequence of Frodo looking Gollum-esque. Like they did the whole makeup to make him look like Gollum. I don't know if it was meant to be like a dream sequence or if he actually had that happen
That
to him in
might
the
have been
movie.
a little too far because I think just the way that they did it, your mind can automatically go, okay, if that's what years of this looks
right.
like, and this is what he looks like after, I don't know the
That would
passage of
also have
time,
to be
but
like a futuristic, like a future look, like like this is what's going to happen to me if I continue to possess the ring like this because the ring is that powerful.
I
Um,
like that they just let your mind connect the dots as opposed to telling you directly that this is the way that things are. Now, this movie is a giant war, which is kind of where we end off with Two Towers, where you get the Battle of Helm's Deep, and it's this giant battle sequence. And the last half of this movie is basically a version of that. And you have so many fantastic moments. I'll kind of let you guys like what were your favorite moments from the battle sequences in this movie?
So I kind of alluded to this already, but the whole Battle of Minas Tirith was
mhm.
insane. I think there's two moments that I love the most. The first was when they finally breached the gate and Gandalf's giving this whole speech of like, no matter what comes through this gate, stand your ground. And it's just a wave of trolls that come marching in, and just the look on his face is just like, oh fuck. And then the second, of course, is the charge of the Rohirrim, where Theoden, appears. You got the golden light coming over the hills, and just the music, the score, the shot, like everything was just like perfect. And
Howard
I've
Shore
seen it.
earned another Oscar here.
Hmm?
Yeah,
I said Howard Shore earned another Oscar
Oh, yeah,
here.
absolutely. The
Pressed
score was
all the right
amazing.
buttons.
The two, I would say, just going off of that as well, the two songs, that and when they light the beacons, that whole sequence is just awesome.
yeah. So in the extended edition, I believe this is shown in the theatrical, right? The beacons. Um, nice, awesome. Yeah,
Tommy's kid also really likes the movie too.
yeah. Jonesy
She
really
does
likes.
actually enjoy it.
Yes.
She loves
But
watching the horses.
the beacons might be the best sequence of shots. in in movies. Like lighting the beacons is the shots are just sick. Like that's my favorite part. Like that is my favorite part. Um, I do like Gandalf in the battle scenes. I like Gandalf's role. I like all the scenes he's in. I like him and Pippin bouncing off of each other. In terms of like they've got they've got Boromir, like they're about to burn him, and he's like what? He's like no, you've got to save him. And yeah, I just think it's just incredible, like writing and acting, and I get where the steward is coming from, but I think that whole arc is amazing. Personally, I think that's the best part of the movie is the arc of the steward,
And
basically.
of
Really?
course, the infamous drop kick of the horse into the fire, always gives me a good
I,
chuckle.
I more think it's the arc because of like Gandalf and Pippin more than like the steward, if that makes sense. Like I just
Mhm.
think the whole arc of like you were saying earlier, like like Pippin having to be like, oh, I have to like this isn't what I expected. I'm a hobbit in this world, and like yeah, I just think it's really I just really think it's awesome writing is what it comes down to. I just think it's some of the best written stuff in the entire trilogy.
Yeah, that, and I think the conversation that Gandalf and Pippin have about like the whole, what happens when you die conversation, like when they're just
Yep.
sitting there waiting. I thought that was a really great scene because you don't really have many scenes where Gandalf's being nice to Pippin throughout the trilogy because Pippin's always fucking something up. But just having that kind
You
of like,
need that orb. You don't need that orb.
but just having that like kind of moment where Gandalf's like, I should probably talk to him nicely and like, hey, like he's actually done something useful and got to comfort him right now. I thought that was a great scene.
I mean, you have so many all-time great moments. You have the scene with I really liked the dynamic of Eowyn and why am I blanking on his damn name? Mary.
Hmm.
Uh
Yep. Yeah, that's a good
I
scene.
liked their dynamic as two people that were kind of told, "Hey, we don't really need you on the battlefield." They're like, "All right, we got each other. Let's do this," and that culminates in an excellent scene where the worst people would be complaining about like they're trying to make our movies feminine, and it's like it's just a really good scene, man.
Her character.
If you don't like
That's
it,
one of
then
the
you
other
just kind of
complaints that
suck.
a lot of like the
Yeah.
Tolkien fans have is like the creation of female characters and the extended editions of female characters throughout the books. But like obviously this was written back in like the 50s, so like a lot of strong women characters were not popular in books those days. But like I think it was worth it because Aowen and Arwen are two. Granted, they only really had 2 or 3 strong female characters in these movies, but still, they made sure to give them those moments that they really shown. And Eowyn has a great arc in this movie.
I think
Yeah.
Miranda Otto did a really great job with that character over the course of this
I think the
trilogy.
complexity of those characters is what makes the trilogy even better than just like if you just made your standard like Lord of the Rings adaptation and you're just like let's just throw like I think that adds another layer to it, and I just think the complexity of it and like her father compared to like what her father expects from her and all this stuff. Like I like you said, Mitchell, if you don't like that scene with the orc and her, like then you're just okay.
Stop
Then
watching movies.
you're just a hater. Like I don't know what to tell you. Like you're
Stop
just a hater.
watching movies. This medium's not for you. Um, this whole series does a really good job of like fantastic pairings. Like for example, you get
Dynamic
Fellowship of the
duos,
Ring
Mitchell. Dynamic
when
duos.
when Gimli is just like I'm Legolas. I'm not fucking with you. I don't fuck with you, man. And then you get the competition where they're counting the different like, all right, I've killed this many people. You've
I
killed this
love their
many
dynamic in that.
in Two Towers. And then it culminates Return of the King. That great line of like, I never thought I'd die next to an elf. How
And then
about
he's like,
side by side with a friend?
God, that's
That I
such
can do.
pure writing.
That
That's such
was a
pure
great
That
line, but I
was
was also thinking that still only counts as one when
when
Legolas
it's
takes
the
down the whole
entire
and
elephant.
the entire elephant.
they still continue that whole we're gonna count how many people we kill in this movie, and it was fantastic. Whole
Also,
action sequence with Legolas taking out the elephant was incredible.
Yeah,
Orlando Bloom has been kind
Bloom.
of an unsung hero of this entire trilogy. Him and
Yeah,
John Rhys Davies both. They had
I wouldn't even say unsung hero because they brought him into the Hobbit trilogy, which obviously we'll be getting to shortly. But
yeah,
his character was not in the book at all, and they loved him so
you
much.
mean like
Like,
Lord of the Rings?
in
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Hobbit.
Oh, he's
eh,
not in the
yeah,
Hobbit at all.
He's
Legolas
not in
Yeah,
The
was not.
Hobbit.
Legolas was
that
not
makes
in the
sense.
Hobbit book. There was a reference of a elvish prince, but he was not physically in
But
the book.
he's not the prince. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Or it
he
was
is the prince. He just didn't have any
oh,
role. He
it
was just
was
referred.
insinuated that he was in. Yeah, he's in
Yeah,
the
it
book.
was
Okay,
just
I see what
a
you mean.
mention of the prince.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Orlando Bloom was so popular that they were like, "Hey, we want to bring you on and give you an actual role in these films."
And that's what I was bringing up last week. Like, you could argue that he is like the most like pop culture character in the entire trilogy.
Yeah,
Like
him and
outside of
Gollum.
Aragon, or Gollum, even. Yeah, those three. That's probably the big three in terms of pop culture. Because
Well, and
everyone was just
especially
like,
Gandalf in the first movie.
yeah, that's fair. You shall not
There's a
pass
lot,
is like
Brandon.
the no, but you shall not pass is like the meme. So I totally get that. I'm just saying, from a standpoint of pop culture, I Orlando Bloom took off with this trilogy, which is crazy to think of because he was pretty big star before this trilogy, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
don't think so because
I
he
think
Or
did
he
this,
wasn't.
and
there's
then
another
this
instance where
year,
this was like the start of his peak. Between this and
yeah,
Pirates of the Caribbean, kind of like
So this is
got him into it.
this like Bill Simmons, like this is his apex mountain. This is like his
yeah, yeah. But
yeah.
he did this movie came out in December of 2003, and the first Pirates of the
That's what
Caribbean
I was gonna say. He's in the
July
first
of
Pirates.
2003
Okay, yeah,
was the peak of the Orlando Bloom moment. Um, it did not last very long, but it
yeah.
had its definite high moments. Um, we got to talk about when they finally get to Mount Doom.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
I was gonna wait to see how
this
long we got into this movie
The
before we
infamous
talked
line,
about
the infamous line.
yeah,
the
You do
like
know infamous
four,
means bad, right?
fine. The
well,
famous line, whatever. Don't
the
correct my.
four
You know
the
infamous about this
four
movie.
the four
Except
famous
maybe
lines, the
like
four
having
famous
17
scenes.
different damn
All right,
endings.
fine. The best Samwise Gamgee line of this trilogy.
Yeah, that's 100%. I don't think that's debatable. To be honest.
That whole sequence of like, he's talking about the Shire and how it's springtime, and then I can't carry this for you, but I can carry you. And again,
Oh,
Sam Wise Gamgee, the MVP of the whole trilogy, as far as I'm concerned. This whole movie, he is just on another level. And I think that Sean Astin turns in some incredible work here. I don't know why. I never seemed to like him when I was younger. I do not know why.
was it Rudy?
I always thought Rudy was kind of a bitch when I was like 8 or
Right, that's
9
what I
years
was
old.
saying. Like, do you think
And
it
I was
was
like, they just
Rudy?
kind of like, I
He
just
wasn't in a
don't.
lot of big movie. Like he wasn't in any like big roles. He was in big movies like cult classics like The Goonies and Rudy. But like he didn't have any major
Right.
roles that I can think of.
His acting chops, though, and his range in this trilogy is incredible. Like Mitchell
Yeah.
points out, his performance in this movie alone should have won him every single award at every single award show imaginable. Like, if this guy didn't win supporting actor, what do we do? Like,
I have not seen Mystic River. I've heard amazing things about it. Tim
I'm
Robbins
yeah, same thing. I've
won.
heard amazing things, but
Yeah.
I think Sean Astin is like an underrated movie star because, like you said, Tommy, he's not in like a lot of big movies. This is like his first break, kind of.
You've
Which is
seen
great.
okay, no, it's he's because he was in the Goonies.
Well, I mean,
So
yeah,
that's
but the Goonies is like
he
a
was in
cult classic.
Rudy.
But like those are cult classic movies and not like box office hits, right? I mean, I could be wrong about that, but I don't think the Goonies is like a
The
box
Goonies
office
was a box
sensation.
office hit. What are you talking
Oh,
about?
okay. Well,
Yeah.
Oh, well, but
Not as
maybe
big
that's
as Lord of the Rings, but
maybe
like,
that's why people felt the way they did about Sean Astin because they're like, oh, this guy's in Goonies, this guy's in Rudy. Like, why is he in this movie? And then you just see him throughout the trilogy, and you're like, oh my god, like he's an amazing actor.
And like going
mhm.
back to like the alternate castings of what could have been. Can you imagine this role as James Corden? Like, God, that would have been awful.
Hell no.
Yeah, I can't see it.
Hell no. He would have been horrible. Hell
I think
no.
Sean Astin was just like the
Like
right
No.
choice.
Sean
It was just the
Astin
right
was meant to
choice.
be for this role, and he's what
Yes.
made this
Yeah.
movie, I think, the greatness that it was.
Yeah,
100%. And
he
even like
elevates
Brandon,
this movie. He elevates it.
You've seen Love Hurts, right?
Yeah, he's in Love Hurts. Yeah, he's
He's in
good.
Love Hurts for like 5 minutes.
He's the best
And
part of
he's
Love Hurts.
and he, no, I'd say Ki Hoi Kwan, but this guy's really good in a movie that does not deserve that performance that he gives. He's in it for like, and he's really only in it so they can sell it as like, hey, it's Ki Hoi Kwan and Sean Astin back together at the Goonies, like,
Mhm.
40
Right,
years
right.
later. So, but he still gives his all in like the 5 minutes that he's in this
The
stupid
five
Love
minutes
Hurts
he's
movie.
in, the 5 minutes he's in, you're like, wow, that was like something. You're like,
He,
I've been
he has
sitting here
this
all
scene where
movie
he's
waiting
sitting
for
by
this.
a fireplace just talking with someone, and it's the best scene in the movie. But enough about Love Hurts.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
guy,
But this is what Sean Astin
More
does.
about
This is
Sean
what he
Astin. They
this is
butchered
what he
him in
does.
Stranger Things because he never got that moment of just like
man,
bringing that acting.
Wow, that's a spoiler.
uh,
No, I'm just kidding. You're good. I need to watch Stranger Things. You're all
yeah,
good.
you do,
Oh,
man. I
but
forgot that he was in
this is what
Stranger Things for a
Astin
minute,
does.
and I'm sad now because they could have had oh man, I know they had to off him to get to what they need to get to with David Harbour, but
Oh, okay,
like,
Yep.
that is a spoiler.
come on,
Jeez. I mean,
Dude, get with the
you
times.
should have listened to the podcast, you
Yeah,
yeah,
bitch.
it's on me. It's on me. But this is what Aston does. You can just give him lines, have him talk to
And he'll
characters,
speak them.
and and he just delivers. He delivers.
Yes, he
Like
does.
it's yeah. I mean, Tommy, you said something important. He elevates this trilogy to
Hey,
greatness.
can you
Like
say that
he is
first
the
part again?
reason. You're right, Tommy, because you're not
I was
always
just
right,
saying
Tommy.
that I said something important. I don't hear that very often.
Yeah, well, but you're correct. He elevates the greatness of this trilogy from his performance.
Do you know what Frodo does with Sam in this movie? He leans on him.
Yeah, he
He
does lean on
leans
him.
on
Leans on
Sam
him
for
big time.
support.
Yeah, he does.
I've got to incorporate that into every review in some way.
Sam
Um,
leans down and he picks him up and leans
and
on
You
Mordor
could say Frodo physically leaned on Sam the
to get
entire
carried
second
up.
half of the
Yeah.
movie.
yeah, well then Gollum leaned on Frodo at Mount Doom.
I haven't seen the theatrical in like 2 years. Is the extended edition? Does that include like the ring where Frodo's like they have the ring, Sam, and Sam's like, oh no, buddy, you're good. And just like pulls it out of his back pocket.
Yeah, no,
And it's like,
that's in the
that's in
theatrical.
the theatrical.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
the hardest thing. Like I was looking up the extended scenes to try and understand like what Mitchell hasn't seen
Right, right.
because like I can't even remember the last time I watched the theatrical version of the movies, and it probably was the first time I actually watched it. But yeah,
Now that I have grades on all of the like official like Mitchell's revised grading system, I have grades on each of these three now. I am much more interested in the extended version
damn
because
right.
I definitely wanted to have grades on the theatrical versions and like
No,
a
fair.
precise number assigned to it. Um, but I am definitely going to by the end of the year I will watch the extended versions because especially with Two Towers and Return of the King. Yeah, I will watch the Fellowship of the Ring one as well, but those two especially are the two that I think they provide a lot of things. More I've heard about Two Towers. I feel like that's the one that they kind of
Well,
left
there's just
most meat on the
Mary and
bone.
Pippin stuff going on, and yeah, I just think there's a lot more there. Is kind of where I'm at with the extended editions in terms of like seeing that development, like you're talking about the arc in the theatrical version, the arc in the extended editions is even like more because there's just more there. Like there's more to kind of spin with them, which I think is worth it. Because again, as Tommy, I think Tommy was also right in this. Mary and Pippin are vital parts of
Yes,
this entire trilogy.
absolutely.
Yeah, so
And as Tommy alluded to, and as one of the big things that I heard about this movie before I ever saw it, this movie has 75 damn endings.
Yeah.
You've got the scene where they're having like a tickle fight in the hospital bed. Um, you've got the scene where Aragorn is crowned as king, and my friends, you bow to no
I
one,
have
which was
quotes, Mitchell.
fantastic, incredible, amazing. You've got the scene where they go back to the Shire, and then the scene where they drink together, and Sam marries the girl that he was talking about. Um, then you have the scene where uh, he's leaving, and then the scene where he leaves Sam the book, and then the scene where Sam comes home, and it's like, all right, I don't mind any of this stuff, but like I kind of thought we were done 3 scenes ago.
And fun fact, that was actually his real life daughter at the end of the movie when he comes home. That's his actual daughter.
Sean
Oh,
Astin's or Peter Jackson's?
Sean Astin's.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
yeah,
But the
that makes
7 different endings didn't really bother me. It's just something that I can't imagine. As much as I'd love to be in that theater, that you've been holding in your pee for 3.5 hours. You had that big drink and that big old popcorn, and you're
well,
like, all
You
right,
get to drain
I'm
them.
ready to go to the bathroom now.
You can drain some of that fluid when you cry your eyes out at the end when Frodo has to leave and just drops the ball and everybody like, hey, by the way, I'm leaving and never coming back. See ya.
they just fake you out. Like it's pretty incredible that they fake you out about 15 times. It's my one problem with the movie.
That's
And I
fair.
don't even think it's a problem. But
It's just a minor inconvenience.
the ending voiceover by Frodo might be some of the best writing. And I don't know if it feels like it's a Lord of the Rings thing, and that's where it just feels right. And yeah, I mean, he's talking about like the threads of an old life. Like, how do you go on when your heart, you begin to understand there is no going back? And it's just like, yeah, I almost cry every single time I hear it because I'm like, wow, this man went through hell and back, and
Yeah.
he's like, he made it. Like,
It's a very different voiceover. Like, for example, yesterday, I've been working on getting through these 2010 movies so that I can do my 129 movie review, and I'm very close to being done. But yesterday I watched Yogi Bear, and they
Oh,
begin
God.
and end that movie with some white guy pretending to be Morgan Freeman, like, and now we're going to go to Yellowstone National Park and talk to Yogi Bear. And it's like, what the hell are we doing?
right.
This is the exact opposite end of the spectrum to whatever the hell that was.
We should do an episode where we just go over like the best voiceover intros to movies. And
I
just,
mean, but to be fair,
Not Yogi Bear.
is this the best voiceover ending of all time? Because the last two
Was
sentences,
there an end voiceover? And no. Well, I guess it's
the
not a
only two
voiceover
voiceovers
ending.
were just the beginning of the trilogy and the ending with
yeah,
Galadriel and then Frodo.
the last two sentences, there are some things that time cannot mend. Some hurts that go too deep that have taken hold.
I'm sorry,
And
but I
then it
think
just
I have a
cuts.
better one.
It just cuts to black, and it's like
Maybe
the
you don't consider this a voiceover, but
trilogy ends.
because he's not a hero, he's a silent guardian, a watchful
Fuck you.
protector.
That's, I
With
mean, no,
night.
no. That's a good one. That's a good one. I mean, yeah. If we're considering that a voiceover, that's a good ending. Like,
Yeah.
but I just think the Return of the King, like with all their false endings, I think Peter Jackson nails like the voiceover at the end.
You
Like, I do
earn
think
all
he
of
nails
them.
it.
So it's not like
Yeah.
you're sitting here like, oh my God. You're sitting here like, all right, you kind of earned this.
And can we talk?
Bravo.
Can
Great
we talk
job.
about the Frodo fake out where Gandalf's like, "It's time to go, Frodo," and the other three are like, what's going on?"
What the
Like,
hell do you mean?
But that's
yeah,
what I'm
what
saying.
do
Like
you
that was
mean?
like this. Like that was probably one of the few movies I've actually teared up at the end because I was like, that's just painful. Especially like you spend like 12 hours with these characters on this intense journey, and at the very last minute, it's like, oh hey, by the way, see ya. I'm never coming back. Like
Yeah, I'm
that
leaving
was
Middle Earth.
heart
Yeah,
wrenching.
yeah, and it's also very interesting. Again, glad they didn't pick the book ending because them coming back to the Shire and just like being almost nobodies and just like blending back into the Shire life and drinking 4 beers by themselves and like seeing Sam make his move, like to
Yeah,
me that's funny and
that was like
almost
a
like
very big like post-war like that like kind of going to Frodo's monologue is just like that whole trauma from war. It's like all these people were living there this entire time, still living in peace, not
they
knowing
have
what was
no
coming.
idea what we just did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a really really powerful scene too because you have Merry and Pippin who were always just the town almost fuck ups and just goofballs, and they're these big war
Shooting
heroes.
dragon
Heroes.
fireworks.
Yeah.
Yeah, shooting dragon
Like you have
fireworks.
no idea what I've done.
Yeah.
So no, that's a very that wow. That I didn't even think about it from that perspective, and it was right there. Could have
Yep.
bit me. All right. It is grade time. So
Hell yeah.
Um, I'll go first. With the I usually like to hold my opinion to the end because I have a way higher opinion of myself than I probably should. But with with these particular movies, I know they mean more to you two because you had, especially you, Tommy. I'll let you have the last word on this one because I know that it's the most important to you. Um, so this movie, it was never any doubt that it was going to be an A+. This was never in question. I knew it was going to be an A+, and I was pretty damn sure that it was going to get into the Mitchell Lee Movie Appreciation Hall of Fame. And as of this moment, it is the 16th movie to make it to the Mitchell Lee Movie Appreciation Hall of Fame as an A+, 80.35. Now, Brandon, that is a very, very close score to one of the other movies that we reviewed, that being Pulp Fiction. It's just below Pulp Fiction, which had an 80.38. So right neck and neck with Pulp Fiction for me. And whenever you're in the same conversation as something like Pulp Fiction, man, you are doing something incredibly right. This is one of the most epic movies of all time, as far as I am concerned. It is one of the best picture wins in the history of the Oscars. I will say that without any question
Absolutely.
whatsoever. And it is an incredible conclusion to what I consider to be the greatest live action trilogy in the history of movies. I know that there's a lot of stuff that we haven't gotten to, but I would put this above the Dark Knight trilogy because I think that it's got a better the movie that I place lower on the pedestal as far as like Fellowship of the Ring versus Batman Begins. I prefer Fellowship of the Ring to Batman Begins. Now, the maybe not because the best movie I prefer Dark Knight to Return of the King, and I prefer Dark Knight Rises to Two Towers. So it's kind of like an even thing for me, but like I don't know. I feel like this is way more consistently toned than The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight, each movie kind of feels a little bit different, whereas this kind of feels like the continuation of one full story. And I think I kind of lean towards Return or towards Lord of the Rings as a result of that.
I think one of the pros that Peter Jackson had when making this trilogy is the fact that he filmed all three movies together. So you had that everything was kind of in sync, whereas all these other
It's
trilogies have
interwoven.
that time
Yeah.
gap in
Props
between.
props to New Line Cinema for allowing him to do that because a lot of places, Warner Brothers, we need to
You gotta you gotta
see
see
Dune
money.
Part 1 succeed before we let you do Dune Part 2. And we got extremely lucky in that it was successful. They also had the HBO Max at the same time. A lot of people watched it on that, so they knew that there was interest. But we could have had Dune Part 2 2-3 years ago, and we could be gearing up for Dune Messiah in a few weeks or so. And it be a little bit more consistent if the studio had the faith. So props to New Line Cinema for allowing him to do that. Just wanted to go and see producers and who might have been involved with that. Oh, He Who Shall Not Be Named was involved with
Oh
that.
yeah, I
So
was gonna say I think you're gonna be disappointed in the
Harvey,
name. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, props to New Line. Maybe not Harvey. Yeah, yeah,
rotten hell, but
yeah. Good call, Mitchell. Um, wow, good reminder that Pulp Fiction is not in my movie Hall of Fame, but very, very close. So
that
I
is.
love how you say that I just give out 75s like they're nothing.
You
It's
do
just
have
not
a
true.
Tarantino movie in there, right?
I have multiple Tarantino movies in the Hall of
Okay. Do
Fame.
you have? Is it Django or I know you've Inglorious Bastards in there. Like I'd be shocked if that wasn't in there.
I have Inglorious. I have Django. I have Reservoir Dogs. Yep, I have those three.
Oh, you've Reservoir Dogs in there too?
Yeah, dude, I like Reservoir
Wow.
Dogs a
Not even
lot.
hating. I'm just wow.
Yeah. Well, I really like Pulp
It's a good
Fiction.
movie.
That's yeah. I'm not even hating on Pulp Fiction. It just makes me realize like to get into my Hall of Fame, you have to be special.
Yeah.
And Mitchell,
And
You have to
Tenet.
be very special.
this
Tenet's
movie's
in there as
special.
well.
Well, Tommy's gonna like this. This grade is above Tenet.
Yeah, buddy.
This is my fourth rated movie right now in my new ranking system. My
What?
fourth highest
You
rated
can't
movie.
drop new ranking systems on us like that.
No, no, no,
No,
no.
we did. We
The one
did.
that consistently
We
like
did.
me and Mitchell work off
This
together.
is number 15 in my new ranking system.
This is fourth.
Oh, good.
Do I expect it to stay fourth? I don't know. But my grade is A plus, 93.4.
Okay.
This
I
That would
applaud.
be 4 for me as well if I gave it that grade.
this is a banger of a movie. It's up there with Dune Part 2 in terms of like theatrical experiences for me.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why they're next to each other on my rankings. And I just think the trilogy, like I'll say it again, I think it's the best. Like it's just interwoven. It makes sense. It flows. The cinematography, the visuals, the writing is just so impactful, and the casting of the characters just does not miss. And to me, I every time I watch this trilogy, I find more and more things in it, and I'm just like, wow, this trilogy is just it's remarkably well done. And so yeah, to me it's a top 5 movie of all time right now. That would probably change at some point, but I'll put it this way. This movie's probably gonna stay in my top 30 in like all movie in like history of movies when I like until the day I die. Like I really don't know if this movie is gonna get outside the top 30, even if we go through this top 50, top 250 IMDb. I really don't see this movie being
Speaking
pushed
of
that far out.
which, it's number 6 on the IMDb top 250 and
That's how we
Damn, that
know.
is high.
number 14 on the Letterbox top 250 for
Yeah, I mean, we
those
just
nerdy
know.
bitches.
I mean, yeah, I mean, Letterbox. What are we doing? I need to grade this movie more and more and more so it gets to like top 5. I mean, what are we? And I just, yeah, I don't know how people like. If you see this movie, like, forget about the rest of the trilogy. If you see this movie, how can you not say this is like a top 20 movie of all
5
time?
star. Just how do you not
Yeah,
give it a
it's an
5 star?
automatic 5 stars. It's an automatic.
And this is
5 stars.
coming from someone that was stingy with it and gave Fellowship of the Ring 4.5, barely got 2 Towers to 5. This one is like a not even don't even need to glance at the screen. Just swipe, all the stars are there.
That's okay because like even with the first two movies, like they are very long movies, obviously, and they can be a slow, dry build.
This
If
one's
you're
not long at all.
Yeah, but I feel like there's a lot more action, a lot more like intense
Yes.
moments in this film that it kind of keeps you engaged more. Whereas the first half of the movies are kind of slow building.
But if there's people in the audience that haven't seen these movies, if you don't buy into the first 30 or 40 minutes, this trilogy isn't for you. Like
If
it's
there's
not.
people that haven't seen these movies, congratulations. We spoiled
Yeah.
everything for you. What the hell were you doing?
Congratulations for listening the entire time. But
You
the
should
first
have
30
been
or 40
watching first
minutes,
and then listening.
the first 30 or 40 minutes of Fellowship, if you don't buy that, you're not gonna buy this trilogy. Like you're just
Yeah.
not. But if you buy in, it's the best trilogy ever made.
Yeah.
It is.
Tommy?
I'm excited for this grade. This grade is going to be like Shawshank levels.
So
Yeah,
this will
I'm
probably
expecting
be,
like over 100.
if I could, I would, but this is probably my favorite movie of all time. I don't think it'll ever be topped, just because of just one of the nostalgic aspect I have with this movie. Just it's been an important movie in my life, so I'm giving it a 99.95. I'm not giving it 100 because nothing is perfect, but this is as
There
close.
you
Nice.
go. There
This
you
is as
go.
close to
Nice.
perfect as you will get in my eyes because it hits every button for me. The action, the music, the acting, just everything was top notch.
I
And
didn't even mention the score. What was I doing? The score is incredible. The
yeah,
score is yeah.
I
The
mean,
score is
you get the soundtrack. You have 4.5 hours of music to listen to. It's a
I
whole after,
played Tommy.
it's
I
a whole
played the
afternoon.
Shire. I played the Shire like 3 songs like in a row, just back to back, like while I worked.
These are
It's
my
just
comfort movies. Like if I
yeah.
just need something, like if I'm homesick, like this is always my sick day movies. If I'm homesick and
Oh,
just want to throw something on,
a little
one
chicken
because they're
noodle
so
soup for the
fucking long.
soul.
So if I put it on and I fall asleep and I wake up like, oh, it's still on, like cool, like over at this scene. And Return of the King is always that movie because I'll fall asleep like halfway through if I'm homesick watching it. And for some reason, I always wake up with the Charge of the Rohirrim. I'm like, yes, let's fucking go. And then after it
It's
happens,
the
all right,
body
fall back to
clock.
sleep.
It's body clocked.
But yeah, it's just like these are my movies for any occasion. I can never get enough of them. My wife hates me for it because it's always on. She's like, "Are we watching this again? It's so long." Like, yes, we're watching it again. But yeah, it's
Be like,
99.5.
we could watch The Town, but we're gonna watch this instead.
We could
It's
watch
just
anything else, but we're watching this.
like, okay. That's gonna be my tagline, Mitchell. This is chicken noodle soup for the soul.
It is.
Well, speaking of chicken noodle soup for the soul, do you know who bought Redbox?
Oh, I can't wait for this.
How was this a segue that you had
I
planned?
know.
Chicken noodle soup for the soul. You know those books from
Yeah.
like the 90s?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
yeah.
bought Redbox like 8 years ago,
Hey.
and that's why Redbox is completely failing.
Oh
And
no.
like you
I'll
don't
be
see
honest, I
Redboxes
didn't
anymore.
realize Redbox was still around.
Yeah, I
You have chicken noodle soup for the soul to thank for that.
Redbox was such a cool idea though.
Before chicken noodle soup for the soul came around. And well and streaming services. But you know,
Yes.
all yeah. However,
We
we
need
are
we need a
done
red
now.
box of 28 years, 28 days later, and 28 years later. We need someone to red box that stuff.
Yeah, seriously.
These are conversations that like I think like what are cinema and movie streaming, what is it going to be like in like 20 years from now? Because 20
Hmm.
years ago
We're
we
just gonna
had
have the movies
Blockbuster.
implanted in our brains.
We, probably, I
Well,
don't
I
know,
want them to play Return of the King. For
because
sure.
like
No, it's
it
gonna be
was
nothing but
crazy.
Madam Web over and over again.
Because I know Brandon and I had this conversation last week about like collections and stuff. Like I had a DVD collection of just hundreds of movies, and then I stopped because I had so many goddamn movies, and I started getting Blu-rays. I'm like, well, Blu-rays are already starting to become obsolete. So what's going to come next? Like, why am I going to invest all this money on stuff where in 10
I've
years
got
it
the
might be
Lord
like
of the Rings
VHS
trilogy.
where it's like it's ancient technology.
I've got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and I have one of the Hobbit movies, which we will be reviewing next. As we will spend, we won't be doing one per episode for the Lord of the Ring or for the Hobbit movies. We're gonna do the Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey, as well as the Hobbit: The Desolation of Smaug. Now, guys, there are extended versions for the Hobbit movies. I'm not watching those. I'm watching
I have
the
seen them
regular.
though; they're not worth. They don't really have as much context to them as the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that's one of the reasons is because one, this was a book that could have been done in one movie. Why they decided to make it three was definitely a studio decision, but there was
Mhm.
really nothing else they could
Money
have.
grab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
money
essentially.
grab. Yeah.
So we will discuss both of those movies next week. And, those are definitely movies that people are very opinionated about. So we'll have to see, is there the same hatred? Because when these movies came out, people liked them when they first came out, but the opinion has kind of soured over time. We'll see where we stand next week.